All right, hello, heavy metal maniacs. It's the Meista from Brews and Tunes. Cheers. I am absolutely thrilled today to be chatting with a metal legend, the one and only Mr. Lothar Keller, of course, of Sacred Dawn and The Skull, among other bands. Lothar, thank you so much for chatting with me today. How you doing, sir?
Doing all right. My pleasure, man.
Good. So, I think first and foremost, the big news, of course, is brand new Sacred Dawn album coming out very soon. Is it October-ish or kind of late summer?
October 29th.
Oh, okay, excellent.
Yeah, that Friday.
Yeah, and if I may be so bold, it's about damn time.
Thank you. I like to hear that.
Because I mean, I thought, of course, the last full-length album was, geez, what, 2011, 2012? Madness Within.
Yeah.
It's been a while, and I know you guys did an EP, Contradiction, in 2019, which was excellent. Had two new songs and then live material, which is great stuff. But new album. Dismal Swamp coming out very soon, and you've released one single thus far, truth be told, and you have another one coming out in 2 weeks, I think, right?
August 4th.
Nice. And I was fortunate enough, your PR guy sent me an advanced copy of Dismal Swamp, and I have to say, man, it is phenomenal. What a great album.
Thank you.
I'm loving it. I think, I thought Madness Within was a fantastic album, and this just next level. You guys raised the bar. Like, it's just incredible stuff.
Much appreciated. I like to hear that.
Yeah, really digging it. I love it's one thing I've always loved about your band is the kind of fusing progressive elements with just heavy hitting, pounding metal and rock. I mean, no holds barred. I think that's what I've always, and you just, and incredible riffage, and then your booming voice too. It's just, such a great band. Really cool stuff.
Yeah. I mean, this album, there was definitely, some passion that went into this, and a lot of time went by. Like you said, it's been over 10 years since A Madness Within came out. And lineup changes, but kind of went back to the old roots that was from the Gears of the Machine. John Vitale came back into the band, and that's kind of what really spawned the whole idea of even doing Dismal Swamp. I've been sitting on tunes because part of my excuse for the reason of the hiatus was when I joined the Skull.
That's a good excuse.
A pretty good excuse. Because originally when that band started, we weren't really sure what was going to happen with it. We just knew that we were going to go out and play some of the old Trouble tunes. Eric was itching to get out there and do that stuff, and Ron, and we started getting into writing original music. So the next thing I knew, it kind of took off on another level, and Sacred Dawn kind of, got a little bit on the back burner but it was okay because the timing and everything, band members moving away and stuff like that. And I let that time go by, wrote a couple of records with the Skull. We actually have another one we're in the process of working on.
Nice.
Post Eric Wagner. But when John Vitale moved back to the area, he said, hey, let's start jamming a little bit. It's like, you know what? I got a bunch of stuff I have been kind of working on, and some stuff I've sat on for a long time. But I always wanted to finish. And so we started writing, and that's whenever Contradiction first came out. It was like, you know what, let's let people know that we're kind of testing the waters a little bit, see if the interest is there. And we were happy with that result. So what ended up happening is that we were like, well, let's just go for it. Let's finish out a bunch of tunes. So we started writing, going through all the material that we had both, been kind of sitting on, and one thing kind of led after another. It was starting to get difficult to pick which ones we wanted to do, because the main goal was, we've never done vinyl. We want to keep it within the parameters, and I got to be honest with you. I used to love the fact that I'd get a crap tune of tunes on a CD, but there's something I missed about vinyl. And that was, at the end of it, God, I want more.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, when I look back at the Van Halen records and Maiden and all that, they're all 40, 45 minutes long, and that was the standard. And we got a good 8 to 10 songs. Bam, bam, bam. Thank you, ma'am. Let's go. And everybody's like, "Oh, that was fantastic." Part of the thing I think kind of happened was when CDs kind of shone the light that, hey, we can fit 74 minutes on there. Stuff started getting kind of watered down a little bit, and trim the fluff, put out the really good stuff, and I think it keeps people's interest a little bit stronger, at least in my opinion. Because there's a lot of bands that I love them, but man, I got to tell you, it was one that had like 17 songs on it. By the time I got to the 13th song, I was like, God, I'm kind of, ears are tired.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But
yeah,
this was a fun record to work on, and even the order that the album start to finish, we had a specific reason why we picked the order, and sonically, meaning wise, tuning wise, there was so many things that we kind of went around the ring on. And I gotta be honest, I learned some of that from working with the Skull, because Eric Wagner really spent a lot of time with, man, it's got to flow a certain way. There's a flow you got to have with a record, and because people are so hung up on singles, that one song. But if you want to listen to everything in context, I love putting a record on and just hearing stuff that I don't normally listen to.
Yeah,
because it kind of takes me into a journey.
Yeah,
and that's kind of what we wanted to do with this record, is take you on a journey with us, And so, so here we are.
And you guys nailed it. And I think that's it. Yeah, I think that's I won't say a lost art, but I think that's definitely an art of that flow. I think, like you said, with the album, the flow of the songs, and because there's sometimes you listen to an album and there's some really cool songs on it and some really cool singles, and some of it doesn't fit exactly. Whereas I think, with Dismal Swamp, it's this wonderful journey, and it really flows really well.
I mean, even how, if people buy the vinyl, which I hope they do, even how side A and B start and finish, it's left to give you some kind of impact. Might not get the same effect on a CD, but it'll still be good. You know what I mean? But and there was so many influences throughout the record. I mean, I'm a child of the 70s, so I grew up with the Uriah Heeps and the Deep Purples and and the Wishbone Ash and all that stuff, and Atomic Rooster. I mean, I can keep going, dude. And it's like all those influence kind of came in to culminate. And when I started hearing bands like Fates Warning, Dream Theater, Maiden, of course, those all just kind of get put into a blender for me. And I love the thrash, I love the doom, I love the classical, neoclassical stuff. I mean, I grew up listening to Yngwie too. I know, love him or hate him, he's still influenced.
Definitely.
There's a lot that kind of pulled in with this, and I feel like the other thing that we wanted to do is, even with the mix of this record, it's a little bit of a different mix from our previous two records, and at least in my opinion, and you can tell me if you agree, but it's maybe feels a little more natural.
It's kind of it's almost more organic in some
ways.
And
perfect.
I think the one thing that kind of, I mean, it's just a great album, but I think one thing that kind of struck me too is like the low end is a little more impactful, I think, than some of the earlier stuff. Maybe that's just the way I heard it.
And that's very insightful, because we did most of this on analog gear, where the previous two were done, out of the box and computer world. We used a lot of analog gear on this one.
Nice. And there's something to be said about that. It's such a rich textured sound.
And we were really adamant about bringing in that natural warmth. We had Jerry Buchko help us with the mix on that, and and me and John just sat with him week after week, just kind of going through these mixes and getting them right. I mean, I was like, and I even said, hey, even listen to like bands like Opeth, how their sound has gone a little more organic. It's like even sounds like that, to pull from. So it was definitely a fun process.
Nice.
Actually get on a board and have a mixing board to work with, as opposed to, I'm going to take my mouse here and
a little tweaking. That's cool.
So I didn't want it to be overly processed sounding. I wanted it to definitely be warm, natural, organic, and kind of suck you in.
Yeah, I've
So,
noticed that with a lot of particularly American kind of traditional metal bands that are, yeah, it seems like a lot of them are kind of going to, yeah, more of an analog, trying to kind of capture that stuff that they listen to, that 70s sound. I know
yeah,
like the new Jag Panzer album has it's kind of a similar vibe, where they've,
yeah.
they're working on a soundboard, they're playing, old tube amps and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
People
it's
miss
cool.
that stuff. I mean, I'm not trying to put down any of the new technologies that's doing amplifier emulation, but you still can't replace that feel.
Yeah,
I've tried all sorts of those things, and it's like, just give me an amp.
yeah,
I'm good.
yeah,
You can blend that stuff in, and that's cool. And we did blend a little bit of this emulated, because obviously when you do studio recording, you got multiple versions of your track. But no, most of it we kept to the tube technology with that. So
nice.
yeah,
You mentioned Eric Wagner, his influence, and there's almost and there was always I think a little bit of kind of a doominess to the sound of Sacred Dawn, but
yeah,
it seems like, with the more recent music, especially you being in the Skull, there's even a little bit more of that to some degree. And I think like Sympathy, I thought
yeah,
we had that feel,
yeah.
but it's still definitely Sacred Dawn, which is
Right,
cool.
right. You can't take away and I hear people references like, the riffs, we're a riff band. It's like, yeah, okay, yeah. There's definitely some riffs that'll catch your ear.
Mm.
Yeah. But song content and structure was always something we really, try to take pride in, and especially now. So, as time goes on, you learn more, right?
Yeah, definitely.
I'm definitely not getting younger, and but I don't feel any less about putting the best thing we can put out,
Yeah,
and whatever we got to do to say, what do we need to do to up this, and we're going to try it. And the best part about this record is it's us. Nobody else told us what to do.
that's awesome.
We just, no, this is what we're doing.
Yeah, that's
And
great.
we're happy with it. We really are.
I think that's one thing that's great about kind of where we are now with modern, the modern music scene, is that there are a lot of bands, especially because of the technology. Bands don't need to rely on giant corporate record companies anymore, which I think was a nice change, because there's so much talent out there, and people just being kind of pigeonholed and pushed into certain ways. And now it's like, well, no, we've got this small record company, Koran, and we're gonna do this. And
Right. Yeah. And, because the big thing is that once that corporate world takes a hold, everything does start to get a little sterile.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot gets sucked out of the life of some of the musicians, and, rightfully so. They make their decisions based on what they want. And if they're getting money, I don't know. Not many people are getting paid anymore. So
yeah, that's the hard thing
that's
too.
kind of you see it all the time, these bands that are finishing tours, and these are, big bands that are like, we're broke at the end of a tour.
Yeah.
Can't even afford to do it right now.
Yeah, and I've seen, multiple people I've interviewed, musicians I've interviewed, they've shown me, even like their receipts or whatever from, or their residual checks from like Spotify, and it's like 38 cents. It's like, that's insane.
Yeah, yeah. Out of how many thousands of plays, right? It is a slap in the face. I mean, Spotify has definitely, and I've heard some people, want to point their finger at Spotify or Napster, whoever they want to put the finger on. It did make the value of music, I think, diminish really quick.
Right.
And it's still taking a little bit of time to regain some of that, because there are still people that are going to want to steal or whatever it is. But it seems like that now, since the vinyl revolution has kind of boomed back a little bit, it appears that, especially with even the younger generation, that old technology is new again for them. We
Yeah.
know it, but to them it's like, wow, I can actually open up and see a larger version of this artwork, or see liner notes that maybe otherwise I'd have to click, click, click to get to the right menu to find. Here it's just laid out for you. And just looking at a piece of vinyl is cool, you
Oh,
know,
man,
and
I love it.
especially some of these colors are clear or whatever, you know, like for the sake this Dismal Swamp, we did a dark, clear, transparent green.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to seeing the finished result. It's actually getting pressed this week. So
Nice.
uh, we're but I love what they can do with this stuff now, because, you know, years ago the PVC quality was part of what made older pressings a little iffy. Now they've come a long way with the quality of the
Oh,
PVC.
yeah, definitely.
So they can be a little riskier with some of it. You know, when they're doing the splatters or the whatever pattern they're trying to do. So I say take advantage of it. I mean,
Yeah.
as far as, you know, everybody used to say, well, the true audiophiles want the black copy because it had a higher carbon content. It's like, it's not so much the case anymore.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. Yeah, I remember. Yeah, when I was younger, yeah, colored vinyl, like, yeah, sometimes, yeah, they've had, yeah, like you said, it kind of had a diminished quality. Whereas now,
right.
you know, I'm a bit of a vinyl junkie, and yeah, I buy all sorts of splattered stuff because it just looks so cool, and it
I know.
sounds
I
great.
know. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you know, as long as you got a good pressing plant working with the stuff, shouldn't have any issues, and it just looks cool as hell.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. When so are the pre-orders available now for Dismal Swamp?
Pre-orders will be available on August 4th when
Oh,
A
great.
Dream Within single drops.
Excellent. I
Yeah.
will definitely be picking that up on vinyl.
Yeah.
So
Sweet.
very cool.
Yeah. And then also too, we'll be setting up pre-orders on the Qumran Records website as well.
Great. Okay. So people can get it from the website or from your page as well, right?
Yeah.
From the
As
Sacred.
of August 4th. Yeah.
Excellent. Very cool. All right. That's good to know. I will definitely be jumping on it right on there on August 4th to order that for sure.
Oh,
very cool. I wanted to ask, I was curious about the you know, and you touched on this a little bit. I was curious about the writing process, as you know, especially for the new album. As you said, you've been sitting on some stuff for a while. So is it a kind of, what is the writing process for you like, and the band members as well?
Well, you know, for me, it's sometimes because I am the singer in this band and play guitar. I do tend to do a lot of things with guitar in hand. Sometimes things are in my head as I'm even driving down the road. I'll open up the phone, hum the melody, kind of junk the chords or whatever I got to do. Get home and lay it down, because I got, you know, the whole Pro Tools set up here at home, and pretty much I'll start out the structures. I set everything, you know, to a click. Play the scratch guitar part, and then I go and hop on my electronic drum kit behind me, and I lay down a drum beat.
Oh, okay.
Sometimes I'll just finish the whole song. I'll do everything and say, here's what I'm hearing. And if John's around, then me and him will sometimes work on these things together. Like if I have a song that I'm like, okay, this is done, it's complete, I don't need to change anything, we'll both sit there and go, okay, yeah, it's good to go. On the other hand, there are songs where, God, I get up to this point and I don't know where to go from here. And then me and him start bouncing off of ideas. Lyrics have usually always been the afterthought. There's only one song on the record that was not. And talking about sitting on stuff, two songs that I sat on. One is One More Day, the one right before the Lake of Dismal Swamp.
Okay.
I've been sitting on that song since 2001.
Wow.
I've re-recorded it multiple times. I was like, no, it's not right. Yeah, I don't know what I'm going to do with it yet. This time I was like, nope, I know exactly what we're going to do with it.
Nice.
And I was like, so we finally did that one. And the other one is The Lake of the Dismal Swamp. I stumbled on that poem when I was 18 years old. I was going through some poem books that my parents had in their house, and I just was like, man, this is a really cool poem. It's written in 1749 by Thomas More. And I was like, God, I should try and set some music to this. So when I was 19, 20 years old, I started writing some music to it, and it was completely different music. It's not what you're hearing on the record.
Okay.
And I never was able to fully utilize all the lyrics. I was like, I don't want to use bits and pieces because that'll kind of break up the story. And I don't want to rewrite it. You know what I mean? Like the modifications and stuff, and especially with the way things are written in old poems like that, I feel like, I want to keep it true to the poem.
Yeah.
So I actually had the riff that opens the song as the beginning part of it. And I was like, maybe I could make something out of this. And it had that doomy feel. I'm like, man, this might work. And once I was able to kind of continue building that part out, I was like, and then got to the main riff and chorus and the melody, I was like, this is it. I was able to take that poem from beginning to end and not change one word with the way we structured it out. And for me, that's like, okay, this is cool. I mean, there's a lot of lyrics in it because it's a full poem.
Yeah.
But we're going to be working on a video for that one.
Oh, cool.
And the cool thing is on that song, we got Mike LaPond from Symphony X to do a bass solo on it.
Oh, right on.
So when you hear that, it's Mike LaPond.
Oh, I did not know that. That's great.
So little side note there.
Nice.
So yeah, we are going to release that as a single prior to coming out, right before the release date.
Great.
But the video we're going to kind of release a little bit after the album comes out because I want to do it right.
Yeah. Oh, I can't wait. I can't wait to see that.
So that'll be fun. But yeah, that's basically songwriting process for me have always been a little scattered. Strangely enough, I've written a lot of songs when mowing the lawn, vacuuming, anything that's got the drone of a motor, because it's easy to sing melodies around it.
Oh, that's really interesting. Wow.
And I don't know why that happens, but every single time I end up stopping. All right, I got to go run, go record something, and then I'll go finish either mowing or vacuuming or whatever it is I was doing.
Right.
So, but that's happened a few times when I'm working.
How did your neighbors like, what the hell is he? He just
Yeah.
ran into the house.
He left the lawnmower in the middle of the yard. Is he going to finish? And then 2 hours later, I go back out there and finish.
Right. That's cool. That's fascinating. That's great. That's really interesting. I was curious. I kind of go back in time a little bit. I was curious about your joining the Skull. How did that come about?
Well, pretty much once Sacred Dawn started in 2005, the very first gig we actually did was in Aurora, Illinois. And Eric just happened to be hanging out at the bar that night because he was kind of lived just down the street from there. I was like, oh, I didn't even realize. And then I started putting two and two together. It's like, oh, yeah, they're from here.
Oh, yeah.
And, met him that time. And then it was just, hey, how's it going? Yeah, it was really, I'm a fan, whatever. And as some years went by, he had formed his band Blackfinger. And then both Sacred Dawn and Blackfinger were on Dark Star Records for Madness Within, and he had his first Blackfinger record. And at that time, Ron Holzner, the bass player, had started a band called Earth Engrave, which Tony Spillman was in.
Oh, right.
And Tony Spillman's a huge connective tissue to this because he's been friends with those guys for years. He's best friends with Bruce Franklin, and he's known Eric and Ron forever. So it is a small circle. Once you meet one guy, you're going to end up meeting the rest of them.
Yeah.
And when the Skull basically formed, it was really set in mind to play some of the Old Trouble stuff. And so we had Ron, Eric, and then at that time, Jeff Oli, the first drummer of Trouble, was also in the picture. We just needed to figure out who the other guitar player was going to be. So for the very first run of the Skull, Sacred Dawn's guitar player, Mike Carpenter, who was on A Madness Within, played with us for a short while. before he moved to Florida, back to Florida. And then shortly after that's when we got Matt Goldsboro, who played in Pentagram. So, and then from there, the history kind of continues. But I was basically approached by Ron and Eric about the idea of joining this band, and they had a festival in Germany that was going to book them. And I was like, yeah, why not? That sounds cool.
Yeah.
But again, we didn't know that we were going to even go into writing original stuff. That just kind of happened because we're like, where do we go from here? Do we want to continue just playing, not being truly Trouble? We were the Skull. It was looked at as a glorified tribute band. And so we also wanted to kind of see what we could do. And the result was pretty good.
Yeah, pretty damn good, I'd say.
I definitely cannot complain with what we've put out by any means. And we got about half of a record written with Eric, and we're going to finish the rest of it and put it out with Carl Agell and Scott Riegers.
Oh, nice.
So you got a COC guy and you got a St. Vitus guy that are going to start sharing the role of singing. And that's where the whole Legions of Doom thing kind of got born from. So
cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Wow. I did not know that. That's amazing. Yeah. That's fantastic.
Yeah. And we had, and of course, with the Skull history, we've had, I think I counted it with Ron the other day. I said we've had 8 different guitar players and 7 different drummers.
Oh, wow.
But we've been pretty solid now with Henry Vasquez on drums, and then we just got a new guy on guitar in the Skull, Scott Little. So, yeah, it's I'm a busy guy.
Yeah, you are. Yeah.
But you know, because I don't know, were you also familiar with my other band, Divinity Compromised?
Yes.
Yeah,
I'm asking about that as well.
Yeah, that band I was just a singer, but I did help with a lot of the writing on the second record. But that band kind of disbanded a little bit. Me and Jeff, the main guitar player, are talking about finishing. We had gotten about roughly half of a new record written. We're going to finish up. I just don't know if we're going to continue using the name Divinity Compromised or if we're going to change that and be something else. We'll see. You know, it's just me and him. We started off as a band of 6 people, and it's now down to 2.
So. Oh, that'll be interesting. Do you have a target date for the release of that, or and the new Skull too? Do you guys have a
new Skull record? We're wanting to try and have something out by next spring or summer.
Oh, okay.
So we want to have something ready to try and turn in the fall.
Okay.
So we got our work cut out for us over the next few months, while I'm also trying to prepare for the Sacred Dawn release.
Yeah.
So I'll have a split brain for a little bit.
Yeah, I would imagine that's got to be that's a lot of work going on. And what about shows? You got live stuff coming up? You got
so Sacred Dawn, we right now we got October 14th set as a show in Chicago, and we also got our label mates Diggeth coming over from the Netherlands to join us. Spillage may also be a part of this show as well. So mid-October, we're going to do our first show out with the new record. And then from there, we're going to be adding some dates to support the record. Nothing set in stone, but there's some talks about what we're going to do. So all I can say is just, you know, keep checking, friend us on our Facebooks and Instagrams and all that stuff. And just kind of, you know, once stuff gets announced, we'll do our best to get the word out.
Nice. Hopefully you'll make it out west.
Would love to. Yeah, definitely would love to do that.
Yeah, that'd be really cool. Any festivals coming? I mean, apart from the October, do you have any big festivals?
Not yet with Sacred Dawn. I know the Skull, and it'll be Legions of Doom. Because when we go out as the Skull, it's just Carl. But when we go out as Legions of Doom, it's including Scott Riegers in the picture, and we're doing a festival in Atlanta called Mass Destruction Fest in November.
Oh, nice. Okay.
But yeah, as stuff gets added, you know, obviously we'll keep updating people.
Nice.
Really, the main thing was just trying to get the album out and get our singles out, and then at least get our first show booked. Mostly because I got to figure out what my availability is.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have to, you know, it's a lot of multitasking.
Yeah. I'd say that's a juggling act. You got a lot going on.
Because my regular day job, I am also freelance. So,
Oh, wow.
okay. Yeah, kind of have to be, because I got sometimes take off a month or two at a time when I leave with a skull.
Right.
I need to know. So I set myself up pretty well working in the television world. So
Okay. Nice.
I can kind of come and go as I need to. I do camera, audio, whatever. So
Oh, that's good.
yeah.
Yeah. You definitely want to. I know that's been, I think tricky for a lot of bands now, where there's so many bands that I mean, they all have day jobs, and just trying to tour and having to get touring live musicians because certain people can't tour and whatnot.
Yeah, and you find a lot of them do jobs like construction and stuff, because it's one of the easier things to come in and out of, depending on when the jobs come and go. But
yeah,
it's a tough thing. I mean, that's why it's why a lot of labels love to go for young bands, because they don't have any responsibilities, and it's easier to suck them into going out for 6 months and not worry about how much money they're making.
Right.
They don't have near the bills that, as you keep stacking up your life into your debt load, you know what I mean? So, it's when that sort of thing starts to come into place, like, oh, okay, how long are we out for? How much are we making? And this is when people really have to prepare.
Yeah.
And I've spent most of my life working like this. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I would imagine, especially as you get older, like I can't, as a kid, I'll sleep in the van, I'll sleep on the floor, but as an adult, like, fuck that. I need a hotel room. I need.
It doesn't always have to be luxury, just as long as things are okay and safe. I don't have to have luxurious buses to be riding around in. I'm good with a Sprinter van, or that's fine.
Yeah,
I got a hotel to lay down into, because I got to be honest, the tour buses aren't that comfortable anyway.
Oh yeah, they don't look. I can't imagine. No. I can't imagine.
You sleep in those bunks, 13 people on the bus. It was the one year. It was the Skull and St. Vitus and Witch Mountain, and we did an entire round around the entire United States on a tour bus. And the first thing, it was, well, you can pee in the lavatory, but you can't do the other business. I'm like, why? Well, it's a $300 cleanup. I'm like, okay. So after being on there for a couple of weeks and it not being cleaned, and just people only peeing in there, you start realizing why he said don't do the other business. And it's like, oh man. And then when the air conditioner broke when we got to Los Angeles, that wasn't fun.
Oh man. Yeah, that would be awful. I can't imagine.
Nah, it got a little warm.
Yeah, especially with 13 people on that bus, man.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was like all the bunks, and I'm like, oh God, no. And of course, I'm on the top bunk, and that's always fun to climb in there.
Yeah.
Not really.
After you're exhausted after playing a show, and I can't imagine.
Anyway.
So change subjects a little bit. I was wondering, take a ride in the Wayback Machine. Tell me about your start in music. I was curious, did you come from a musical family? Like, what was the impetus from you? How did that all start?
Everybody in my family plays something.
Oh, cool.
My father first started getting me started on the recorder when I was 4 years old. Everybody learned back in elementary. By the time I got to the same grade that they were teaching it, I was already excelling in all sorts of classical pieces.
Oh, wow.
I'm classically trained, and also was in the North Carolina Boys Choir for a few years when I was in elementary. So harmonizing, vocalizing was always going on. Guitar, I picked up around 8 years old. And at the same time I was doing that, I started playing trumpet.
Wow.
And I got pretty good on trumpet. I actually took lessons for about 8-9 years from a classically trained trumpet player. Yeah, and then started. I mean, the guitar lessons were always kind of hit and miss for me though, because they'd run out of things to teach me, and then I'd have to go to another guy. Not necessarily running out of things, but they're just like, I don't know if I can teach you more. So I'd find somebody else, and I finally went to a guy. The last guitar teacher I really had, he was strictly classical. I'm like, I just want to take. I don't need to learn rock stuff. I already know how to play that stuff. I want to get into some sight reading and learn classical. And this guy was teaching me music, all this old medieval stuff. And I mean, the hand stretches you're doing really got the dexterity up.
I bet.
I mean, but same thing. It was like, and he was like, okay, you can definitely read now. And, you know, if you want to continue taking lessons, you can, or just keep doing what you're doing. I'm like, and at that time was actually around the point I was getting ready to move away from North Carolina and move to Iowa. And then I started working in television, working in remote television, doing sporting events. So I kind of didn't do anything much for a few years after that. Because the band I had at the, you know, all the bands that I was in at the time, they were all becoming dysfunctional. And I was kind of like, I still kept playing, but I wasn't doing any bands or anything for a few years. Gotcha. And when I moved to the Chicago area, that's when the itch came back. Okay. So in about the year 2000, when I moved here, it was like, okay. But I never stopped playing. I mean, I guess and my mom also taught me piano at an early age too. So I'm not like phenomenal. I'm on it, but I can definitely do enough to get by. So some of the keyboard stuff on the record is me doing that.
Oh, nice.
The first track, the opening track though, the instrumental one, I did get Paul Rowell from Spillage to play the organ part on that.
Oh, cool. He's a great.
I wanted to kind of Ken Hensley kind of sound.
Yeah, cool. Very cool. Yeah, so, I was going to ask you, but I know it's kind of off topic, but yeah, I was going to ask you about because there seems to be a touch of Uriah Heep vibe in there.
Yeah. So. Oh yeah, just a bit.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool.
Yeah, actually, the first record that got me hooked into Uriah Heep was my uncle had a copy of Ken Hensley's Proud Words on Dusty Shelf.
Oh.
And I was like 8 or 9 years old. I'm putting it on the record player, and I'm like, oh my God, what is this? So, yeah, influences for me really did start in my single-digit years with a lot of the instruments that I started kind of dabbling with. Drums just was always something I just did just so I could write. But I have, I have actually sat behind a drum kit for a few bands in the past, but that's not something that I'm gonna, make as a profession.
Right.
It's just, but for a writing tool, so that way when I record stuff, I can at least be efficient enough to get the idea across. So
I love that. I love the fact that you're multi-instrumental, but and part of that, the purpose is to write. I think that's amazing. That's cool.
Yeah. Because honestly, I mean, even before I did guitar, I was actually thinking I'm going to play bass because I loved Chris Squire's tone on all the stuff. When I heard Starship Trooper, he's like, jung, 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 I was like, oh, that's the bass. Yeah. I want to do that. So, yeah, good stuff.
Yeah, very cool. I was curious about the, and you mentioned a few, but like who were like kind of, especially with guitar work and vocals too, I guess. I was curious, who were like the big influences for you?
Vocally, definitely David Byron, Bruce Dickinson, Jeff Tate, and Alan Parsons.
Oh, interesting.
Some of the vocal work that he's had done on some of his records. I love that airy dreaminess on some of the songs,
Yeah.
But vocally, yeah, some of those powerhouse singers, the typical ones that suck you in. I mean, it's like, the very first time I heard Bruce Dickinson, it was Die With Your Boots On.
Oh, yeah.
That was it, and that riff in that song is just so awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, And then I heard Fly to Icarus after that, and the screaming did at the end of that. I was like, oh my God. All right. And I love Halford and I love Dio and all these other singers. But I guess when it really gets down to it, who was the first one to really grab me by the balls? And yeah, those were the guys.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I'm not a musician by any means. But yeah, I think I remember I was a young teenager and I was at a friend's house and his older brother and his buddies were listening to Peace of Mind. And I walked in the room and just like, what is this? Like, this is amazing. So, and it would have been around, I don't know, 84, 85.
I want to say
somewhere around there. And I just was like, wow, this is life-changing.
Yeah. I mean, just when I would just sit and listen to that thing, the guitars just were, wow, they're really in my face. And I mean, I just loved it. Even the raw sound of the drums, but then you put his vocals on, it's like, all right, that's it. There you go.
Yeah, exactly. Nice. What about guitar? Who were kind of your big guitar? Or still?
Steve Howe from Yes. Dave Murray from Maiden. Yngwie. John Petrucci from Dream Theater. And Terry Kath from Chicago.
Oh, interesting. Nice.
Yeah. I also love Mick Box from Uriah Heep, but I mean, like I said, my list can just keep growing if I really, but right off the top of my head, if I were to name some people, those are the first ones that kind of popped in.
Nice. Very cool. I love it. So I know you've got a beer there, right? You're drinking a beer?
I do. Actually, a local brewery just down the road from me.
Oh, cool.
Tighthead Brewing. It's called Chili Water. And the artwork on this is
that's cool.
When I walked into their brewery, they actually put that artwork on some of the tables and did that like acrylic, shiny, those wooden tree tables or whatever.
Yeah.
Oh, man. This just, their artwork. They have one called Scarlet Fire, and it's a woman in this elegant dress, and it's just these really cool artsy, but their beer is phenomenal. I haven't had a bad beer from there yet.
I'll have to check them out. I'm not aware of that.
Based out of Mundelein, Illinois.
Okay, I will definitely check that out. So that leads to, and I don't want to keep you all night, but that leads to my final question. So as you may or may not know, my page is Brews and Tunes. I pair craft beer with metal and hard rock albums. So it's a Saturday night. So what is, we know what you're drinking, but what if typical Saturday night, maybe if you're hanging out at home, if you're not insanely busy, which you always are, but what beer are you drinking and what album are you spinning? What's your pairing?
You know what? Okay. The chili water has actually kind of become our norm to always have in the fridge. Okay. Once in a while, we'll pick up some other specialties. Like I do love a good Belgium beer, like the Quack or Carmelite, but I also love the Dark Imperial stouts too. There's a place over in Michigan, and a buddy of mine likes to make trips out there, and he's like, "Hey, let me know what you want me to get." And they have some pretty rad beer over there. I mean, maple, bourbon, chocolate, coffee, thick, 14%. I used to be really heavy into the IPAs, but I have to be kind of careful on what IPAs I drink now because my stomach kind of, the heartburn.
And I hear you.
And that's why with this chili water, it's so easy on the stomach. Every person I've ever let drink it, they're like, man, it's easy drinking. Cool. And that's what I like. And once in a while when we cross over, because we live in the part of Chicago, I'm pretty close to the Wisconsin border.
Okay.
And there's a beer up there you can only get in Wisconsin called New Glarus. So they have a few different brews that you can get, one called Moon Man. But their most popular one is called Spotted Cow.
I've had that. That's a delicious beer. Yeah, I've had that.
That's it is. It's so anytime we go into a place and they have it on tap, it's always good.
Nice.
beers, or just jump right over the border and go to the first beer store, which is usually one right on the border selling it for $35 a case. But
Right.
yeah, but what are you going to do?
Yeah.
I like the beer, so
Nice. Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Me too. Very cool. Well, cool. Yeah, it's some great beers. What would you pair with? What album would you be spinning?
Well, sometimes I'm throwing on some of those old 70s, like Atomic Rooster, Genesis,
Mm,
but then I've been known to pull out the Opeth once in a while, throw that on, and
nice.
I got quite a varied collection in vinyl, so I kind of just go in there white, maybe a White Snake record one day or something. Who knows? Vandenberg. I might pull out Lizzie Borden.
Oh, right on.
Kind of depends on the mood. We got a bunch of Psychotic Waltz. We got, kind of just sometimes we even play the just close your eyes and go grab something and pull it out.
Yeah,
That's always fun too.
I do that as well. Kind of see what I'm going to pull out and go from
Yeah.
there. Very cool. Very cool. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, Lothar, this has been an absolute pleasure chatting with you. For those of you watching, look in the description below. There are links to Sacred Dawn. You're definitely going to want to pick up the new album, Dismal Swamp, when that comes out here in a little bit, because it's phenomenal. And I do not say that lightly. It is a phenomenal album from start to finish. I love it. So anyway, Lothar, thank you so much. This has been an absolute pleasure. Cheers, my friend.
Thank you very much. Absolute pleasure.